So, this week on Monday Night Sunday School, we're going to be looking at what it means to be partners in God's mission. First, a little bit of an introduction for those of you that don't know me. My name is Dennis Smith. Together with my wife, Maribel, we have moved to North Bend to begin a new chapter. After 43 years of service, I retired as a Presbyterian mission worker on October 31st, and you here at First Presbyterian Church of North Bend have been part of our family of supporters for some time, so thank you for that. And one of the big reasons we've moved here is because this is where my folks, Ray and Jean Smith, have been living for the last several years. As Mary and I settle into life on the south coast of Oregon, we've been looking back and unpacking memories, lessons learned, and many of you have been part of those memories. So thank you for that. Now, there was a time when we thought of mission as something that we as Christians do, a function of our devotion, our commitment, our initiative. And little by little, we've been learning that wherever we went in mission, God was already there. In some mysterious way, every people of every tongue, even in our brokenness, were embraced by common grace. And we came to understand that we are called as servants of God's mission, not the mission of First Presbyterian Church of North Bend, or even of the Presbyterian Church USA. And in that sense, we've learned that our God is too small, too specific to our language, our history, our position in society. And to walk alongside those of a different culture, a different lived experience, specifically to walk alongside those who are on the edges of our society, broadening our understanding of how and where God is present in this world. Indeed, we've come to understand that our salvation is bound up in the salvation of all of humankind. And so our task as mission workers was not to be God-bearers, but to be fellow pilgrims discerning how and where God is present in every time and place, and how God was calling us to faithful service in building the common good for the whole community. Christ is our model, and Christ is our companion on the journey. One text that I have found useful in this journey is Matthew 12, 46 to 50. It reads like this. I'm sure it'll be familiar to you. While he was still speaking to the crowds, his mother and his brothers were standing outside wanting to speak to him. And someone told him, "Look, your mother and your brothers are standing outside wanting to speak to you." But to one who had told him this, Jesus replied, "Who is my mother? Who are my brothers?" And pointing to his disciples, he said, "Here are my mother and my brothers. For whoever does the will of my Father in heaven is my brother and sister and mother." Okay, let's switch gears for a moment so we can figure out how to approach this rather strange and disturbing passage from the Gospel. A few weeks ago, I was listening to A Way with Words. It's a radio show and podcast on National Public Radio here in the U.S. And the host was describing a quaint Norwegian greeting, "Thanks for the last time." Thanks, say the Norwegians, not for what is to come, but for what has been. You know, in Latin America and all those years of service, I've been trying to learn how to pay attention to people. I'm learning to cultivate and value relationships as a space where God is present. It was maybe 30 years ago now, and I was talking to Jose Ignacio Lopez. He was a pastor from Cachiquel Presbytery in Guatemala. And we were remembering the life and testimony of a common friend, Manuel Saquic. Manuel had led his presbytery's Human Rights Commission and had been murdered by a death squad because of his courageous witness. As Mayans, said Jose Ignacio, we understand that sometimes we are given the opportunity to say goodbye before we die. Do you remember, Dennis, the day Manuel and I dropped by your office to talk about that Christian education project? Why, yes, I remember. I think it was probably the last time I saw Manuel alive, I responded. Exactly, said Jose Ignacio. Manuel was saying goodbye to you that day. And I thought to myself, was I paying attention? I'd been welcomed into another way of being, embraced by this deep and intuitive hospitality. Had I even noticed? And then I thought about these words of Jesus, these hard words about family. For many folks, family is everything. And this week is going to be hard for all of us precisely because we're trying to figure out how to fill the hole left by all of those absent places around the Thanksgiving table. And we love to joke about how to deal with the crazy uncle who brings up controversial topics at Thanksgiving. But for many of us, this is a sacred time, and it is deeply felt. We will mourn this week yet another intrusion of this heartless pandemic into our family routine and traditions. To defend family or tribe, or defend even the idea of family and tribe, can lead some to heroic acts of generosity and solidarity. But when it is fed by lies and mired in fear, tribal notions can lead us to withdraw into ourselves, shut down our borders, institutionalize hatred, even rewrite history to justify horror. That, as we read history, is who we are as human beings. Jesus proposes changing our notion of family, making it broader and deeper, because our idea of family is too narrow, too pale, too shallow, and it is designed to exclude and to justify that exclusion. But in a particular place and at a particular time, Jesus affirmed and celebrated difference. Women, children, lepers, the mentally infirm, Samaritans, the discarded, the discounted, even militants and those who had made their riches and traitorous service to empire. Jesus says, this is my tribe. The ties that bind Jesus' new family are the universality of our brokenness, our common yearning for wholeness, dreams dreamed together, passion, half-formed hopes, and our absolute dependence on God's grace. But this can be hard to hear. And it takes us back to what I was saying about family and tribe. All those in positions of power, at all times and in all places, have wanted to create God in their image, to put God at the service of their political and economic system. And we are no different. We're so much more comfortable if we can put God in a box of our making. And the same happened to Jesus and his followers. Political, economic, and religious elites cut a deal with the imperial power of their day that led to enormous suffering for the masses so they could protect and even strengthen their own privilege. And even among Jesus' disciples, James and John were quite willing to work with their own mother to lobby Jesus for high political office. And that same James and John wanted to call down fire from heaven on the Samaritans, who just happened to be people of a different ethnic and religious tradition. Indeed, they're the folks, if we go back to Eric's recent study of Nehemiah, these are the folks who did not go along to Babylonia. They were the ones who had ended up intermarrying with the other occupants there in the area around Jerusalem after it was conquered. Our worlds are so small sometimes, so easily that small familiarity becomes our normal. People that look like us, talk like us, eat like us, work like us, play like us, and in this small familiarity, difference can become a threat. But when we follow Jesus, we discover that God is present in the other. Imago Dei is what the theologians call it, the image of God. And even in that person, we so quickly discount it as a threat, as not normal because they are not like us, as the one who makes us uncomfortable. That person, too, belongs to the family of Jesus. Following Jesus into real relationships with real people teaches us to live with ambiguity and contradiction. Life in Christ teaches us not to judge, but to be generous, to be gracious, and on that path we discover that all truth, all beauty, all justice flows inexorably from the Creator. And that's why, as people grounded in the Reformed tradition, we can boldly build alliances with all people of goodwill as we seek the common good. I see I've gone on longer than I expected, sorry. And as Presbyterians, this profound truth helps us to understand that God calls us to do mission in partnership. And that's a tricky word, partnership. In the world of business, it implies mutual accountability, with each partner bringing tangible assets to the table, expecting tangible results. Because in a partnership, actions have consequences. It might bring challenges, satisfactions, shared skills, and learning, but it implies hard work. And you've learned this in your own adventures in God's mission. Hospitality gratefully received and graciously extended. Laughter and song as bread is broken around the table. And the aromas, the flavors, the dizzying sense of feeling so far from home and yet knowing that here too you are loved, you belong. The knowledge that there is still much to do, and it will be done together. Praying together, confessing that we who thought we knew so much know so little. So on Monday evening, I want to hear what you think about what Jesus says here about family, and what stories you can share about what you've learned in service to God's mission. Whether it's from your work at the food pantry or trunk or treat or the choir or mission trips or sharing your faith at school or at work, you have learned important lessons that will enrich us all. I want to hear your thoughts about this question. Was God already here before the first missionaries came? And what does your answer mean for our understanding of mission? I think it'll be fun, and I look forward to learning with you. So, Sunday school on Monday at 7 p.m. See you then.